Hello, everyone. Hello. There behind me is Cissy Houston, rest in peace, who I say have received her wings, as we say in the Black community, and has rejoined her daughter, Whitney Houston, and granddaughter, Bobby Christina, just this past week on October 7th. She recently celebrated her 91st birthday on September 30th. And unlike them, she did not have a tragic ending. So let's celebrate her life by remembering her in this short video. And I say that to say, by mentioning Bobby, Christina, and Whitney, and my view of Cissy Houston is that she was always, I would say, a footnote to both of them. It seemed what I knew about her life was surrounded by her daughter, Whitney, who was like super, uber superstar. And then Whitney's own daughter, Bobby Christina, with some of the many episodes of her young life. But Cissy had a wonderful singing career herself. And for this, we'll just honor her directly. And actually, in searching for a picture as a backdrop for her, most of her photos are also with the two of them. So they were, I believe, her pride and her joy. So having said that, let's just take a little look at Cissy's life. She had an interesting musical life. She was a musical director of her church for 30 years. And she had a wonderful range, singing range. Some of the songs that are not as popular, like number one hits, that she did duets with Whitney, or duets with her niece Dionne Warwick. When you hear her voice, it's astounding. It's astounding. But rarely do we think of her directly in her singing. I know I did not. Um, but I'll drop many of them in the description box so you can see. Take a listen yourself. Just a wonderful voice. Some things that we may not have known about her is that she also sang with Elvis Presley. She did a few songs with Elvis Presley, a few songs with Elton John. She did a couple of songs with Aretha Franklin. Whitney Houston's godmother was Aretha Franklin. Dionne Warwick is her niece. Now, Dionne Warwick also had a group in which Cissy at one time was either involved with or did some solo contributions, I'd say, to that group. But it seems that she was always with a name bigger than hers, and her name seemed to follow their names. This is why I say she's like a footnote. But what a wonderful footnote she was. She carried her own. And I believe, in my view of her, I believe that much of her life after Whitney's solo career took off, I believe around 1986, I believe, Cissy kind of took the back seat and allowed her daughter to really shine and grow and begin to somewhat worry about her career as it took its many angles, I'll put it that way. I believe that she substandardized her own singing career to keep an eye on Whitney's. And as Whitney began to become more famous and have her issues with drugs, Cissy's devotion, motherly devotion, any mother, but motherly devotion kicked into gear. And you didn't hear much of her singing anymore. But she was really pounding for not only the success of her daughter, but for the refuge of her daughter, for the savings, saving grace, I'd say, of her daughter, was not ultimately successful in that just by the passing of Whitney. But I found that in my view and observation of her, Cissy spent much of her adult life adulting for Whitney, meaning she was not pleased with her marriage to Bobby Brown. She was not pleased with her drug use. She was not pleased with her actually losing at one time her vocal abilities. I recall watching, I believe it was the BET Awards, in which it was it had become very difficult for her to hit Whitney to hit the high range in I Will Always Love You, where she has that moment where she belts out. And you see the camera pan over to Cissy. And what I call in one word was a disappointed look, a mother's disappointment. Now, no child wants to see a disappointed look from their mother. But the camera caught that, and I always remembered that look, that she was displeased with the performance and disappointed in Whitney. And right thereafter, Whitney was uh, admitted to a drug and alcohol treatment center. And that was a mother's love going for her daughter. So much that I recall, she was not pleased with her choice in partnerships. There was supposedly a relationship with Whitney and Robin, her, I don't know, assistant, um, lesbian relationship. And Cissy denounced that on Oprah Winfrey show. So all of this became her life, I would say. But besides that, she had a wonderful, beautiful life, singing life of her own. And I'll just review some of her public obituary, and I'll drop it in the description box for your own review. But having said that, some of the things that I discovered from her was her Broadway contributions, her minister of music at the New Hope Baptist Church for 30 years, how she stayed involved with that, how she was a founding member of a group called Sweet Inspirations, and she toured and recorded with Elvis Presley with that group. And then after leaving that group around early 1970, she went for her solo group, her solo career singing gospel. And I believe she garnered 2 Grammy Awards for her gospel work. Then she became the mother of Whitney. And those issues that I discussed earlier, which I will not recount again here. But one fascinating story of her life was that she told Rolling Stone magazine in 1978 that she'd be out playing in the sun with the other kids and her older sister, and she'd rather be singing than to be doing that, and that she enjoyed singing more than playing and hanging out with her. So singing was her thing. Cissy was married twice and was divorced twice. She was also what I called, uh, I wouldn't say orphan, but she lost her mother at the age of 8 and then her father thereafter, which is how she went to live with her sister, who is the mother of Dionne Warwick. And I believe she was no more than about 18 years old. So by the time she was 18, she had lost both of her parents. In 1998, she published her autobiography entitled How Sweet the Sound. And 15 years later, in remembering Whitney, she told a very harrowing story of her long but unavailing struggle to help her daughter overcome many various problems, including the marriage and the drugs, as I spoke about earlier. Another good, loving, memorable talent of hers was when Burt Bacharach recorded his own version of some of his greatest past hits. He chose her to sing the lead on One Less Bell to Answer and All Kinds of People. And that was a carrot in her cap. So there she found herself singing not only gospel opera, but also she performed with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. And that was a thrill for her. She began to sing again with her uh, niece, Dionne Warwick, and she did some other other duet work with Whitney. So it's just fascinating to know that she truly did have a career and a wonderful singing talent. And although we may not immediately know her singing work or even have any of it, I'm going to drop some of it in the description box for your hear. And you'll hear what I heard, and that is like, oh my God, who's singing that? She's just absolutely talented. And for that, we give you all the praise. And rest in peace, Cissy Houston. And I'm sure she's rejoined with her daughter, Whitney, her granddaughter, Bobby Christina, and many others that made their passing before she did. Hope you've gotten this far. Please click like and subscribe, and may peace be with you always. Good night.